Hi everyone. I was very emotional last night and torn and broken and wrote about my 4 years struggling. I want to tell you what exactly I was struggling with. So I kept getting cellulitis in both my toes that would go deeper and deeper, and they would burn like fire at night when they rubbed together. And there was no solving the situation. Putting in separators would cause more friction. Um, Putting shoes on would create so much friction, so I couldn't wear shoes anymore. Um, it happened over 4 years, and I screamed out to the universe for help, and I was not heard. I did not tell the story of visiting a doctor and saying, I didn't quite finish that story. I visited a doctor and told him I said I had Crohn's disease. What really caused the antibiotic resistance was when I got C. diff. So I said, I require IV antibiotics to get this closed. I've had this thing for months. It's just gonna reopen and reopen and reopen. I need a chance to heal, and I need IV antibiotics and and rest, and so in 7 days it can close, and we can be at the end of this chapter, and I can get well again. And he said, no, you can take antibiotics for 6 months and this could be solved. This guy is an ER doctor, doesn't know my case, doesn't even want to hear what I have to say. When I tried to go into my history, he cut me off because he doesn't have time. So he's making diagnoses before he even knows the situation, and that's what all doctors do in Canada now. They do not have enough time to know their patients, or to know their diagnosis, or to know the course of treatment. So I begged him. I literally begged him and cried, and I said, please, I need IV antibiotics. Please. I can't do this for much longer. I can't. And he said, you need to be positive about this. I said, it's been going on for months and it doesn't close. I need IV antibiotics. And just to spite me, just to make sure that I was the most uncomfortable and that I did not receive the care I deserved, because I was telling him what to do and he thought he knew better, he says, fine, I'll give you IV antibiotics, but you're taking them at home. So I don't know if you know this about the social system, and I don't mean to diss nurses, but nurses that work in the community are the worst nurses. That's why they work there. They're not that good. And she was literally unable to create a intravenous line. And I said, you're a nurse. That's your job. That's what you're supposed to be doing. And she said, I'm not a machine. I said, well, what are we going to do? I need to get my first course tonight. She says, I'm going to have to get a nurse that's hard to get a hold of. She's really good with IVs. I've never done one. She was a nurse. Oh my God. So, eventually this person comes and does it. Very sloppy, doesn't even make sure it's held in the same place. So, of course, I wake up in the morning, there's blood all over my bed, and it's come out. Because they don't even know how to secure it in place. And so every day I had to be poked, because they simply didn't know how to make sure that it would stay in place. And I knew my parents didn't know the reality of the situation, how these long infections were paralyzing me. When I went to somebody's birthday, and with a pick in my arm and a hole in my toe, a hole in my toe, burning. They told me to go up 2 flights of stairs with an IV in me, and I was in so much pain. I cried all the way up, like not just the tears flowing down my eyes. I was beside myself in pain, trying to make every step because I knew that's what my family expected of me. My family believes that I do not have a disability. My disability is not an excuse, and I can get upstairs. Even with cellulitis in my foot, a hole so deep it's almost going to my bone, an IV in me, and I'm just crying all the way up. And my dad's helping me, saying, good job, Jules, good job. And I'm thinking, these people are insane. Are they really my family? If I had a daughter this sick, I would say, hey, let's book the event on 1 floor for Jules. But my experience is never important to them. And of course, when I got there, I came up mad and I wouldn't talk. And they're like, there goes Julia, being herself, reacting to us because, I don't know, they when I get angry and say, like, we really should have done this in a different place, they literally hid from me on the balcony and talked and didn't include me. I was in another room just crying, and they decided to go on the back porch and just have their own little thing. And when my sister drove me back, she screamed at me the whole time. I did not say a word because with Amanda, you just don't say anything because it could be taken as wrong. So I said, yes, Amanda, I understand. But saying that made her mad because she really didn't think I understood her. So that was just making her angry. So I said, Julia, if you be quiet, maybe it will stop. And she's like, you can heal yourself. You could not be in housing if you got a job. You could have a better life if you tried. And then after all this abuse and verbal abuse, I said, I have a pick in my arm. I have a hole in my toe. I can't walk. I can't sleep. I need to heal. Please leave me alone. Leave me alone. And she suddenly went quiet, and I went out my way with my walker. I could have used help, but I went out there alone, and I did it. Because with my parents, I have to go for a walk with my walker, or I have to use my walker. The idea of using my wheelchair is not accepted in my family, especially by my mom. She says she's not there yet and refuses to accept it. She said, the day you can't walk up the stairs to get into my home is the day you're no longer invited. And that's why she emotionally distanced herself from me, because I think it was painful. She said she had to turn her feelings off, like love, because she had to save herself. So she literally would leave emails with her first name and not mom. I wouldn't get a call, a visit. While COVID was going on, she thought housing was contaminated with COVID, and she didn't visit me for 3 years. And that's really when our relationship, it was ruined before a little bit, but that's when there was no relationship to speak of, and she didn't even know how to talk to me. or to relate to me or how to have a functional conversation. So she never answered my phone calls out of like fear. Whenever we had a conversation, she was full of anxiety and talked over me, and there was just a bunch of criticism. So I knew she did not have the same relationship with me with the rest of her siblings, who she talked to in a very affectionate manner. Having a family that expects you not to be disabled is the most it's the hardest thing in the world, because you go to physical therapy to try and walk again. And I'm doing it for myself, but I'm doing it for them. But it's not for a positive reason. It's so I can be accepted by them and live in their reality and not mine. And it hurts. And every time they had to take me in a car with my walker, they thought it was a burden. And when that person was chosen to do it, they thought they were the sap chosen to take Julia that night. And what a waste of time, what a burden. And when I first got my walker, and years afterwards, they would say, just don't bring your walker. It's going to bring dirt into my car. It's going to bring snow into my car. And I needed my walker. I don't know what they were thinking. And they would hate me for that. Sometimes Mom had to pay my sisters to take me home because they felt it was such a huge burden. And then they would scream at me on the way home, and I felt like a subhuman that wasn't loved. And I would get so suicidal after these visits. Because it just gave me the message, nobody wants you, Julia, especially the way you are. You're not walking enough, you're not doing enough, you don't, and the thing they did with the job, I worked 15 years in social services. I did jobs and volunteered, and since I've gotten sick, I can't do anything safely, so I would love to get out. But I can't do anything safely right now. And I went through a huge mental health crisis where I was so afraid to get out because I thought I would either fall or not be able to do something, or that I didn't leave my house in 4 months. I had to be put on lorazepam and take it 4 times a day to stop the flight that had been developed in my brain over this traumatic experience over 4 years. I developed complex PTSD. And I don't even tell them about this because they will criticize that. They have called me a prescription drug addict on several occasions. And they also said that my emails for help were drug-induced. Because honestly, they were crazy. I was like, why aren't they answering me? Why aren't they helping me? Why aren't they addressing this crisis? And my mom would say, you're 36. Get a life, get a job. But she didn't understand that I wasn't just a 36-year-old adult. Sure, I'm competent, I'm intelligent, I have 3 university degrees. But as a person with a disability, I needed help, and that was okay. But they weren't that type of compassionate family that gives selfishly. On Christmas Day, my sister forgot to leave enough room for my walker, and she said, you have to fix the problem because it's your problem. I'm not going to fix it. So call Mom and make a solution. Don't just cry, because Of course I cried because I could not believe that another year had gone and they still forgot that I needed a walker. Especially after 3 years of being sick. This was not this year, but last year. And my mom screamed when I called her and said, "What, are you tattling on your sister?" I said, "No, I'm calling for a solution. Amanda told me to call you. Maybe you can come pick me up." "I'm not picking you up. Just walk without your walker like you used to. Just walk. Why don't you walk?" And I said, "Mom, there's a snowstorm out there. I am not safe. I don't want to fall." So she went home and she never picked me up. And I spent Christmas Day with the family. I missed Christmas Eve. We're all watching movies and popcorn. That's what we were going to do as sisters. She invited me over so we could have sister time, which we never do. And they never acknowledged that their actions caused the problem. It's always my emotional reaction which tells them I'm the problem. I've had a walker for almost 20 years, and they still do not accept it. My mom still takes my walker outside of the house 2 years ago, but now that I've gotten sick, she leaves it in the house. But any time after that, she would have made it go outside so it didn't get anything wet or dirty. They just did not live in reality and accept my disability, and it destroyed me. And I do not know why I'm still here, because, they did not always look after my safety. I remember my dad's farm, and he refuses to believe this or remember this. He would not shovel, and it's farm country, so sometimes it would be so much snow you could just fall in it. And my dad or my sisters refused to help me. And my dog named Fence. He was named Fence. And he was full of light. I see animal souls because they're very evolved beings, and he actually was brought in the family to help me because he would stay by me, so if I fell, I could use his back to get up. And I always said, "Sorry, boy, I have to use your back," because I knew it was a lot of pressure on him. But he knew he had to do it to keep me safe, because my family, if I stayed on the floor trying to get up, would leave me there for an hour and not even pay attention. They were just busy getting in and doing their own thing. They weren't concerned if I was on the floor trying to get up and getting frostbite. So he saved my life so many times. Sometimes I fell 5 times and he was there. He never left my side, and I would always say, "Sorry, Fancy. Sorry, Fancy. I gotta get up." And then, since he knew my dad's house didn't have a railing, he would walk slowly so I could hold on to him as a railing. He was more human than my family during that time. And I remember when my aunt first witnessed this behavior, I was coming out of the car, and for some reason Fence wasn't there, so I'm falling and getting up, falling and getting up. I'd been out there for a half hour, and nobody's come and helped me and come to get me. And I come in crying, just crying. And my aunt said, "How would you feel if you were left in the snow for a half hour? How cold would you feel? How scared would you feel if you couldn't get up? Don't do this to your sister." But it never fazed them. And I don't know why. I was expected to get up Victorian steps that just had big boulders every other step to go on. And then I had to crawl up the last step. Like, I couldn't put my foot up and get to the next step because I didn't have the balance. So on the final step of wood, I had to crawl to my knees, crawl to the last step, climb up, and then use the doorbell to get up, because the rule was you never help Julia. She needs to do it herself or she'll never learn how to do it. And that rule was borderline psychotic. I always hate when I fell without mitts because I would get frostbite. I had so much frostbite during the winter. I was just used to it. My fingertips to this day are they don't have much, and I know it's because I have damaged nerves. Like, how can you walk away from that? And I remember my mom kicking me out with just shoes and a jacket in a snowstorm, and I knew if I fell, I would die. I wasn't going to make it to the bus, and I would just stay there and be stuck in a snowstorm. And what if nobody came to get me? And so I prayed to God that whole night. God, guide my steps. Don't let me fall. Guide my steps. And there was so much snow, I tell you. Guide my steps. I was so frightened that I was going to die that night, but I didn't. I should have fell backwards on those Victorian stairs, but I didn't. I should have fell forward on those stairs, but I didn't. They always left the side door full of ice, so all I did was slip and fall and get back up and slip and fall and get back up. That's why that's why I have inflammation like I do and damage like I do. There's so much damage from what I had to do to survive. I really do not know how I survived their negligence, because it's so funny. They didn't even see their actions, and they didn't even see what they were doing to me that could be harmful. And I didn't understand why adults didn't see it and wanted to stop it. I tried calling CPS when I was 18. My mom still brings it up because she thinks it's because I'm devious and I'm the one that has all the trouble. But of course, I was suffering from mental health issues because my family was telling me that I was an it. My mom, when she came home, would berate me and say, I can't believe I gave birth to you. I can't believe I created you. Your back is so crooked. Something could ski right off of it. I remember when you could walk and you couldn't tell at all that you had a disability. All my hard work gone. I sacrificed my life for you. For what? And she liked to drag me around the house and kick me in the fetal position. I lived in a world of fear, so the flight or flight was already there. I liked to give myself the illusion that I was safe by locking the door in the bathroom, and I started cutting myself to get all the hate out of me, because the hate that they projected towards me, all my mom's energy went into my arms. It really did. I felt it. It was anger and rage and self-hatred and misery and depression, and it vibrated in my arms, and I cut like crazy, and nobody noticed or cared about that until I cut myself so deep by accident that it required 6 stitches, and here it is on my arms. I don't know if you can see it. That is now what it is. Oh, no, you're not seeing it. Oh, I don't know how you see it. I guess you see it this way. Oh, yes. I was really a tortured soul, and I needed to be rescued from this family, and I sought refuge from my surrogate family, who took me in, and I was like, they're laughing at my jokes. They like who I am. Their mom cooks food every night. They're so happy. Why isn't my mom happy? And, I spent lots of holidays with them, and I got to learn what a real family is like. So my family has always been this way. I tried to intervene many times, but because my mom was manipulative and I was vulnerable, she could convince anybody of anything. So when I called, she would kick us out. This was so hard, anxiety-wise. Like, at any moment, she could kick us out, and I'm working on a project that I just poured my life into for 2 hours. And it's so exhausting. She'd make us pack a bag, but she only gave us so much time, so you grabbed as much as you could. And sometimes I only had one outfit, and I was washing that one outfit every day, and I never had what I need, like a toothbrush. It was so stressful for her to kick us out and put us in in our stepdad's house. And I have to start the project all over again, and I knew I'd be up till 3 in the morning, maybe 4, maybe 5, and I probably wouldn't even sleep because what happened was so stressful. But one time she tried to do that, and I called the cops because I thought the cops would say, you can't kick out your disabled daughter. Let her finish her homework. She hasn't done anything wrong. Instead, she convinced them that I started the fight, that I was violent, that I was hitting her, that I was mentally ill and causing chaos in the home, and she didn't know what to do with me. So the police ordered that I had to leave the home because I was the one creating the problem. It was again a confirmation that you're disabled, you're vulnerable, no one's going to believe a damn word you say. And then when we were, and then I made one final attempt when I was 17. Because the abuse was getting so bad. Like, you have no idea. It was dark. The negativity, you could feel it in the room. It was so heavy. All of our energies that were being abused and suppressed, and the depression in the house. It was bad because I'm an empath and very sensitive, and I was suffocating. And I called and I said, my mom's beating us up and kicking us out, and I don't feel safe anymore. But my sisters came to my mother's aid and told her I was telling all lies, because in a narcissistic family, there has to be complete allegiance with the children who aren't being as abused as the other one. I'm the black sheep, so I'm getting the most abuse. I'm getting all of it so that they don't get any of it. They were abused, but not as much as me. And so my mom will bring this up constantly and say, remember when you falsely called CPS on me and you called that cop? And I'm like, do you really not remember what happened? What were you on? Were you too drunk? What happened to you? And I really do think she forgets. I really do think that, because my mom was so unwell during this time. I know she was in some kind of psychotic rage, and she was not all there. She got fired from her job. I don't know what year, but like she was unbalanced, and she had rage and anger. It almost turned into a psychosis. I looked into my mother's eyes, and whoever came in, one was the monster and the other one was my mom. But my mom wasn't really there. She would usually make us cook dinner, do our laundry, and she would stay outside on those old phones, talking to her friends all night. She never wanted to be around us, and she wanted to be in her own little world. She wanted to date, but a lot of her dates found her to be a little out there, and I remember a guy left her, and she said she felt true love and passion. She's never felt that before. And I remember she cried her eyes out, mopping the floor because she couldn't sleep. I knew my mom was suffering, and I had so much empathy for that. But so much empathy. I cried with her. But I don't know why we were denying how bad it was at home. Even people that lived next door to us said, we were going to call CPS. I'm glad you made it out of there alive. Like, that woman was insane. And I said, she was mentally ill, yes. Because even I have sympathy, because I now have the mental illness that she has. She does not take medication because she doesn't believe in it. So she actually thought my medication was making me mentally ill, and often encouraged me to get off of it. I'm sorry this video has gone so long, but it's hard to go over a history of violence so long, but this is what I lived through, and that's okay. I survived it. It has made me stronger, but we need to realize that other people with disabilities could be going through this, and we need to make sure that we have advocates and systems in place to notice that and make sure that something like this doesn't happen ever again.